the stage. And I did. I got that from my audience. People came up to me and stuff, and it was really fulfilling and humbling. So
it must have been so comforting.
Absolutely.
So what was your biggest takeaway from this project?
My biggest takeaway from this project was that, first of all, it strengthened my relationship with my nephew, for sure. Just hanging out with him, realizing like how to make this scene as realistic as possible, but also from this Genius project, I definitely got a very stricter work ethic. And I think I gained leadership skills from this because I am an actress. That's what I do. I've never directed anything before, so it was really interesting being on the complete opposite side of the spectrum and taking that leadership role. And now I know that I am capable of that.
You know, Gavin, I actually had the opportunity to be an actress in Tessa's scene, and it was one of the most eye-opening experiences I've had as a theater student. Although I portrayed the scene's antagonist, I have to say there is no better feeling than bringing a meaningful story alive into the stage.
That's so cool, Lexi. Art truly is a great way to connect to people of all backgrounds. But do you know what else can achieve the same goal? Language.
Completing the sign language pathway here at Stage Creek has been one of the best decisions I've ever made.
I know we're already pretty smart, being the brains and all, but if we listen carefully, Catherine might just be able to make us a more intelligent host duo with her next TED Talk. And I present to you, Catherine Minen with You Say Tomato, I Say Tomato. What's the big deal?
비밀을 그려줄 줄게. 아주 간단한 거야. 오직 마음으로 봐야 잘 보이는 거야. 가장 중요한 건 보이지 않아. And now in English. Let me tell you a secret. It's very, very simple, but only if you look with your heart can you see it. The most important things are not visible to the eyes. That was a quote that I found on the back of one of my favorite childhood stories, The Little Prince, though that copy, this copy, was not written in English, but rather in Korean, the language I've been learning for my Genius project. Now, the reason why I love this story in particular is that for being characterized as a children's literature, it contains wisdom within its pages that spans well beyond the limits of childhood. I mean, that quote remains so true, doesn't it? The most important things are far from visible to the eyes. Now, I've been learning Korean for the past year and 3 months, and I've loved it. I set out to learn a language, but I've had the unexpected privilege of acquiring knowledge that I couldn't have expected. You see, Korean is changing the way in which I view the world. Language is the first lens through which you look at life. But for politics, religion, education, they are all secondary to this underlying perspective that is language. Language functions as something as a set of walls that narrows your field of vision in a world that you share with 7.7 billion people just like you. Language gives you identity. Now, it's really fascinating is how this sense of self varies from language to language. I love using the example of the Korean word uri, meaning we, us, our, or ours, depending on placement in the sentence. Now, the reason why I love this particular word is because its meaning is pretty straightforward, but its use to an English speaker, well, I found a little bit funky. You see, the very simple English phrase, my father, in Korean is actually said as 우리 아버지, or our father, even if you are an only child. We find this our pattern in a lot of relationships in Korean. Anyone here who's married tonight? More often than not, in conversation, you would refer to your husband or your wife as our husband or our wife, even though you're probably not sharing them with anybody, hopefully. Even outside of relationships, we find this our principle. One of the most common expressions for Korean in Korean itself is 우리 말, meaning our words. Our captures the essence of Korean. Fun fact, according to Clearly Cultural's 2018 Individualism Index, out of a max score of 100, South Korea received the mere 18 points, ranked one of the most collectivistic societies in the world. Now, South Korea is neither socialist nor communist. It's actually a democratic republic with 3 branches of government: executive, legislative, and judicial, and supports a lot of very progressive movements. South Korea is a lot like us, isn't it? But the United States, on that same index, received a score of 91. We're ranked one of the most individualistic country in the world. It's kind of fascinating, isn't it? To ponder why 2 countries of such similar political and social agendas remain this far apart on the most fundamental level of their cultures. There's a barrier between us and them. So I'd like to take some time now to tell you all a little bit about my day. Please humor me for a second. So today I woke up, I got in my car, from my house to my school, and now I'm sharing my genius project with you. Now, let's reconsider that very same story, but in Korean. Today I woke up, I got in our car, I went from our house to our school, and now I'm sharing one of our genius projects with you all. Got a bit different, didn't it? One was a story about me, the individual, and one about us, the community. One was individualistic, one collectivistic. The identity of you and me, all of us changed because of tiny little words. Words make all the difference. Words that are of but one syllable in length that we use every single day. Words that have the power to change the narrative. Words are the bricks with which we build our walls. Now, these walls are not inherently good or bad, any more than identity is inherently good or bad. It just is. It's a part of being human. It's a fact of life. But the one thing about walls is that they are incredibly difficult to talk through. It is no wonder that though we live in a day and an age where you could download right now a translating app on your phone that would allow you to go out and communicate with people in virtually any language, that we still have such a difficult time connecting. Something gets lost in the conversation when it's an electronic device that does all the talking and not you. There's a phrase in language learning. You speak to a man in a language which he understands, and you speak to his mind. But if you speak to that same man in his first language, you speak to his heart. Now, that phrase has nothing to do with comprehension. It has nothing to do with his ability to better comprehend one language over the other, nor your ability to comprehend and speak his. Siri. You can change Siri on your phone, and she will be able to sit and comprehend what he says and even regurgitate a response. It's because you are human. And because you are human, when you change out, when you truly embrace some of his language, his way of looking at the world, you change out some of your bricks for his. That is called understanding. The world is undeniably getting smaller. Every day, technology grows more advanced, and we are able to travel further across the oceans, across the land masses, across the walls. But only the physical ones. The strongest and least conquered remain the walls right up here. The walls constructed of I's and me's and us's and we's. The walls not visible to the eyes. Now, these walls differ from physical walls not only in medium, but in how we ought to deal with them. You see, you don't need to tear them down. You don't need to dispose of your personal perspective, the way you relate to other people. You don't need to throw away your identity to understand another human being. It's not that drastic. But perhaps it is time for you and me, all of us, to change out some of our bricks. Thank you. 감사드립니다.
Different languages offer us a bunch of unique perspectives on life that I never thought about before. And after listening to Catherine's speech, I think we might be giving the so-called brains a run for their money.
Yeah, I know. And with that perspective, people can apply those ideologies to their own lives.
You're right. And we encourage you to look at this next project with a different perspective.
And now, here's Avalon Greenberg Cole with her genius project that sheds light on the very real topic of sex trafficking.
Avalon, it's so great to sit down with you and talk about your genius project, Heels in Slavery. Can you shortly describe to me what your genius project was?
Yeah, so I worked in a drop-in center for teen victims of sex trafficking. Acted kind of as rehabilitation and counseling in an artistic form.
Oh, awesome. So what drew you to this project?
What drew me to this project was that San Diego is the top third city in America to have the most profitable sex trafficking industry, and that there's a huge stigma around this issue and that nobody's talking about it.
Wow. So I know that you volunteered during this project. Can you describe to me what that volunteer organization does?
Yeah, so the organization offers counseling, rehabilitation and reintegration programs for these victims of sex trafficking, and it helps them integrate back into society, gets them jobs, sometimes even gets them out of jail. So it's a very important program.
Awesome. So can you just tell me, what does it mean for you to be a young woman in San Diego while this epidemic is happening?
It's scary, but it is also really empowering to be on the other side of it, because there are so many people affected in our city, Carlsbad, San Marcos, Oceanside, even could be our classmates. It's empowering to be on the side of social change and doing something about it.
Yeah. Well, that's so brave of you to step outside of your white picket fence and help those who need it. Can you just tell me, what's your takeaway of this genius project?
My takeaway is that it's so important to step outside of ourselves and, as you said, our white picket fence, to decide to not ignore the ugly tarnishes on our world anymore, and to find, your peers who are from a totally different world or life, and be a mentor, be a friend, be a guide to them, and realize that we live in a life of privilege, but because someone else doesn't mean that there's nothing you can find in common with and you can't help. So just really deciding to step outside of yourself.
Mm-hmm. And step into another person's shoes.
Mm-hmm.
Well, thank you so much, Avalon. It's so great to talk to you and learn more about your genius project, Heels in Slavery. Thanks.
It really does take a lot of courage to bring that issue out of the dark into the attention of the world.
I couldn't agree more. Sex trafficking is a serious issue and should be treated as one. I really hope Avalon's project helped all the strong women involved to be able to heal and look towards a more hopeful future.
The next and final speaker also helped raise awareness for a group of people whose journeys aren't fully recognized by society. Now please join me in giving a warm welcome to our final speaker of the evening. Here is Aditya Bhatia.
Let me take you back to the year 1998, when a baby boy was born to a young couple in New Delhi, India. Right away, doctors noticed something wrong, as the baby was so weak he could hardly cry. Soon after he was taken home, the baby had trouble breathing and was immediately rushed back to the hospital for emergency lung surgery. Even after the operation, the prognosis still wasn't good, with the baby having a slim chance of survival. At the time when most parents would be celebrating their child's first steps, this young couple was in the hospital, waiting to see if their son would survive surgery. It's hard to believe what the couple, my parents, went through during their newborn's first few months. And it's harder still to imagine what their son, my big brother, Sid, went through at that tender age. After my family moved to California, when Sid was about a year old, he underwent several other follow-up heart surgeries. But as time passed, Sid grew. He grew healthier and stronger and happier, and he even grew to surpass the expectations of the physicians who treated him. Soon, things really started to look up for the family. And then 3 years later, in 2001, someone up there decided I should join the family. Ever since I was little, Sid has always been one of my best friends. My rock since day one, I've always admired him. He was taller and faster and way cooler. And seeing the challenges he's had to overcome, I can easily say he's one of the strongest people I know. For as long as I can remember, Sid has always loved sports, especially basketball. We would play together all the time at our neighborhood basketball court when we were little, and we still do from time to time. But back then, being 6 inches shorter than him meant that he was pretty much the Steph Curry of the house, since he could drain three-pointers on me like I wasn't even there. Yes, in case you were wondering, the one on the left is what Steph Curry looked like in 2009, before he got his jersey. But it's there in my neighborhood basketball court where I got my first experience in coaching. I am 4 inches taller than him now. So it's there where I got my first experience in coaching. You see, Sid has always been a great shooter, but he used to struggle on the mechanics of dribbling and passing when he was younger. So I'd help him by gradually building my defense on him when we played, so he learned how to dribble around me. I practiced passing the ball with him back and forth from progressively farther distances, so he learned how to pass farther and harder during a game. And little did I know, these baby steps I took towards helping my brother grow set the stage for a key life decision that would change my life for the better. And that decision was to join Special Olympics. Since Sid loves basketball so much, my parents decided to take us to a Special Olympics meeting in Oceanside around 11 years ago. It's there we met Rich and Ellen Cavagnero, who introduced us to Special Olympics basketball. Since Mr. Rich in the blue is the head coach of the Special Olympics Vista basketball team, it was the perfect introduction to a new chapter in our life. Through the years, we've grown so close, and we love them so much. Not just because they're our coaches, but because they're my role models for devoting over 30 years of their lives to Special Olympics. Miss Ellen, if you could stand up, I'd like to take this moment to recognize you and Coach Rich for their unwavering support to this beautiful organization. Even now, as I speak, Coach Rich is up in Long Beach prepping our team for the Special Olympics Summer Games this weekend. So both of them are really the definition of commitment. After Sid joined Special Olympics in 2008, I'd tag along and watch his weekly practices in Vista. It's there my world opened up, and I met many specially abled athletes on my brother's team, many of whom have become like family to me through the years. Watching the practices, I was struck by the love and compassion and care each athlete showed for each other. I loved how everyone kept pushing each other to overcome obstacles, keep improving, and grow as basketball players. I also found myself drawn to the coaches, who so diligently worked with each athlete on each skill to help them succeed. And seeing all that at a young age was incredible. And it inspired me to become a Special Olympics certified basketball coach my freshman year of high school. I've been coaching since then, and I've loved every minute of it. After all, this organization gave my brother a chance to pursue a sport he's passionate about and receive all the support he needed to excel in it. So when the Genius Project rolled around junior year, I felt it would be the perfect opportunity to share my love of Special Olympics with Sage Creek High School. I thought for a while on how I can marry the two, and it instantly came to me. I decided to organize a collaborative basketball practice between my Special Olympics basketball team and both boys and girls Sage Creek varsity teams in the Bobcat Arena. I envisioned this to be an annual event where all athletes could practice together, grow their skills, and have fun. I intended to hold this practice over a weekend in the spring, and I saw it as a chance to impact lives, a chance to share the beauty of working with specially abled athletes in a fun and memorable way. Now, in my spurt of excitement after coming up with this idea, I underestimated what it would take to put a project like this together. You see, I had this perfect scenario planned out in my mind of how it would look and how it would turn out. But I neglected a simple thought. School apparently isn't open on the weekends. I know, shocking. So I had to plan thoroughly about everything I would need in order to hold an event outside of school hours. I had to think about things I hadn't given any thought to, like how many people would be there, how many basketballs would I need, which basketball hoops would I need down, which side of the bleachers would I need open. And then came other smaller issues that were still important, like who would get the keys to unlock the gym in the morning, and who would open the bathrooms, because apparently people need those. After working out the logistics, now I had to find a suitable date to hold the practice in the gym. Now, in my brazen rush to get started, I wasn't as thorough as I needed to be, since I scheduled the first